Goodbye belongs to a very specific subgenre, funeral films. I'm sure you've seen one before. What happens is a member of a family dies, which causes the extended family to gather. This somber occasion and this sense of loss then becomes a sort of reckoning. Deep-seated resentments bubble to the surface. The grief becomes intertwined with anger. There is a revelation of inner strength and eventually reconciliation and graceful acceptance. When faced with death, human beings are forced, at least for a few days, to become their best selves. Think of films like the terrific Marathi film Karkhani Sanchivari, Ram Prasad Ki Teravi, August Osage County, or the British black comedy Death at a Funeral. Writer-director Vikas Bell sticks to this familiar formula. The film begins with the death of Gayatri, played by a sparkling Neena Gupta, which then causes her children to come back home and handle their perennially crabby and conservative father and confront the vast vacuum that now faces them. At one point, they're just sitting around her body in silence, because without her, they have literally nothing to say to each other. She was the one to soothe nerves during screaming matches and to remind them to wish each other on important days. Without the positivity with which she glued together their family, it quickly threatens to come apart.
पापा से पैसे मांगने में इंसल्टिंग लगता है?
इंसल्ट नहीं, आपको प्राउड करने के लिए।
अरे प्राउड करना तो पहले बात करना सीखो।
लड़ना है तो लड़ लो, पर तकिए पे सर मत रखना।
The subject is inherently emotional, but Vikas doesn't tease out this ache. Instead, he blatantly yanks at our heartstrings, and I will admit it's effective. I cried in several scenes. The centerpiece is the last conversation that Harish, played by Amitabh Bachchan, has with his wife, who is now in an urn. We've seen Mr. Bachchan work through similar emotions of separation in Baghban, and yet he dives into it with such genuine anguish that it feels new and heartbreaking. Harish is the best written character in the film, and Mr. B works every inch of this man. His scenes with Neena are so lovely that I wish they would make a spin-off which tells us their story. All we know about Gayatri is that she was 15 years younger and this sort of amiable rebel. So when she catches her young son smoking, she simply takes the cigarette and inhales deeply. But we get little sense of her inner life or what made this marriage endure. The trouble with Goodbye is that all these other characters are just given so little to work with. Rashmika Mandanna, making her Hindi film debut, plays Tara, a hard-drinking lawyer who's constantly warring with her father and with traditional wisdom. She has a boyfriend named Mudassar and this inbuilt hostility. She also plays the ukulele, but none of this is explored with any depth. She's a type rather than a person, and Rashmika can do little except sit around with a sullen expression.
नाक में रुई, पैर बंधे हुए हैं, no logic.
2 दिन से उसका फोन नहीं उठाया इसने। रात भर फोन करती रही तुम्हें। फिर कहाँ गया था तुम्हारा लॉजिक?
The talented Pavel Gulati is Rohan, one of those corporate workaholics who's chatting on the phone even as he leads his mother's funeral procession. Basically, a far less interesting version of Hrithik Roshan's character from Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. There are also other siblings, neither of whom get a graph or any texture. They're just used like levers to yank at our tear ducts. There's this scene which takes place a few days after Gayatri's funeral, in which a member of the family wanders around the house calling for her, not knowing that she's dead. Really, in this time of instant communication, that seems like a little bit of a stretch. As does Sunil Grover's character, a pundit who doubles up as counselor and giver of wisdom to this troubled family. At one point he tells Tara, "Ye kahaniyan hi hain jo duniya chalati hain." I couldn't agree more. But the trouble with Goodbye is that there isn't enough of a story. The film doesn't have dramatic tension. Instead, it's a series of flashbacks, memories, vignettes, and arguments held together by this overwhelming desire to make the audience weep. There are stretches in which tedium settles in, but also others in which the string pulling works. In short, it's a mixed bag, with Mr. Bachchan consistently elevating the sluggish writing. Watch it to see what this about to be 80 years old superstar is still capable of. What did you think of Goodbye? Tell me in the comments below, and do subscribe to Reviews and More, like and share.